All right. I do believe that we are live. We are live once again. Again. Hello, my friends, and welcome to a very special episode of the JD Rucker Show. We're trying, giving it a shot, take two on the Rumble streaming platform. Not for those who don't know, so Rumble has its own studio. And I'm so used to using OBS. I've been using OBS this entire time. I need to start using Rumble Studio because number one, it's great to be directly integrated with Rumble. Number two, it seems to go higher quality on YouTube and X, which is really cool. That's something that I wouldn't have expected, but apparently the integration there is very strong, very strong. Plus, this allows me to be able to monitor the chat directly through the platform itself. So there's a lot of advantages. There's a learning curve. Okay, I'll admit it. I am not. I am better in front of the camera, believe it or not, than I am basically technically behind the camera, which is what this is. I'm trying to be in front of and behind the camera at the same time. For now, Lord willing, that will change very soon. Let me get into X real quick. Make sure that we are broadcasting there. It appears that we are broadcasting. Yes, it appears that we're definitely broadcasting on YouTube, and I'm double checking Rumble now. So if it sounds weird, just bear with me. Anybody, by the way, give me a thumbs up, give me likes, give me subscriptions, all that good stuff. It's all free, but it does help me greatly when you do that. So please, if you're watching, do that now. If you can, give me a sound check because I can't. I'm doing this live. we're we're going on the fly with this one. So give me a sound check if I'm coming in too hot, too cold. I don't even know the correct terminology. How do I sound? Let me know in the chats. I think I can actually monitor both sides. In other words, I think I can see if I do this right, I can actually. Oh, there we go. That one sounds coming in. All right. Well, technically speaking, that's a good sign because I could hear myself. Hopefully, you didn't hear too much of me through the microphone. What a great night it was. It exceeded my expectations. President Trump's address before Congress tonight was, in my humble opinion, very spectacular. And that's not coming like that's not a fanboy opinion. Okay, that's literally just and thank you. Entry required. I like that. Thank you, Celine Assant. Great name there. Thank you. Good sound. All right. All right. So that's one of the benefits, by the way. One of the big benefits of going through Rumble is that when you're working directly through their studio, so I've heard the sound quality and the video quality come out just perfect. So that's the intention here. But yeah, I'm not being a fanboy when I say that was a fantastic speech. It's I expected it to be a very good speech. I expected the Democrats to do exactly what the Democrats did. And yeah, overall, it was great. Now, obviously, timing wise, the speech ended a little less than an hour ago, and I had to take care of some business. So I unfortunately, I don't have clips from it. If you didn't watch it, then I would recommend definitely taking the time. I think it was a little over. See, that would have been goodness, about an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half from the time that he actually walked out till the time that he was leaving. It was approximately an hour and a half, and that's a lot longer than old Joe could have gone. That's for sure. But unfortunately, as a result, I didn't have time to get a lot of clips. We put all of the clips that we grabbed, and there was a lot of great ones. You can find those over at thelibertydaily.com. I've got them spread out across the site, mixed in with some commentary, some news. The big news, and not big news. Let me clarify there before I say it's big news. The attempt at big news, the attempt at disruption by the Democrats. We knew they were going to do something. There were rumors that they were going to have AOC throw eggs at him. Of course, AOC didn't even show up because she's got to be the center of attention, and that means not being in an audience. That means actually being I don't know what she was doing, probably playing around on Blue Sky or X or TikTok or whatever it is that she does. I stopped paying attention to her long ago. But the attempt to disrupt everything, the attempt to throw a monkey wrench in the early headlines, in the discussion points, and people talking about X. They had a sacrificial lamb. His name was Congressman Al Green. He was sent out there to make a total ass of himself in the beginning of the speech, and basically get thrown out. And then, I'm sure they'll play a victim card. They'll probably say that Mike Johnson is racist because took a disabled black man and he's got his golden cane there threatening people and screaming some kind of nonsense. I don't even know what he was screaming. I tried to replay it a couple of times. Couldn't tell what he was screaming. But the intention there by the Democrats, this was planned. Let's be clear about that. This wasn't like some spontaneous burst of anger from an unhinged member of Congress. No, they said, all right, who's going to be our sacrificial lamb to go out there and try to steal the news cycle? Because that's the attempt here. The attempt is to make a headline bigger than what they anticipated to be a tremendous speech by Trump. And to be fair, okay, if we're being like completely transparent about Trump's speech, it's not like he could have given a bad one, considering everything he's done in the first 6 weeks of his administration. He could have gone out there and just read a teleprompter of all of the executive orders and all of his accomplishments, had no guests, no surprises, no nothing else. If he just did that, it would have been a great speech. And it would have been a long speech because there have been a lot of actions, a lot of executive orders, and a great deal of accomplishments that have taken place. This was not about just going through and listing his accomplishments. This was also about focusing on the future, and he did a fantastic job at that. So, but Democrats, they wanted to subvert it. And Trump did. I don't know if it was impromptu. I don't think it was. It was probably intended. They probably planned it out. I would have to read the not the transcript, read the prepared speech, which I'm sure we'll get a copy of here soon. It's probably floating out there right now, but read a prepared speech and see if he was planning on lambasting the Democrats the way that he did early on for their lack of being energized. I mean, it was as close as they can come for him to call for bipartisanship, and that's to say, hey, you guys, doesn't matter what I do. He said, I could cure the most hideous disease in the world, and you guys would still not clap. You still wouldn't cheer. You wouldn't be happy for the United States of America. And it's so true. There were times when it should have been a unified standing ovation, and they refused. There was a handful that would occasionally clap over certain things. He mentioned farmers, and I think they showed the crowd. See, of course, every Republican standing up, applauding, as we should, applauding the great benefits that the farmers provide to us, the great benefits that President Trump and his administration are now providing to farmers. That should have been. Now, I'm not talking about cheering for Trump. I'm saying just cheering for the farmers of America. What congressperson is going to sit there and, as the president is thanking the farmers for their hard work to keep us fed, for them to sit there with their arms crossed and they have those little signs out there. It's like save Medicaid or save the whales or save boys and girls sports. I didn't read them. They had these stupid little signs. It's like they're at an auction or something. It's like, oh, $13. I don't know. I mean, it was ludicrous. But yeah, so early on, they started booing about he said something about how he had the most, not just the winning the electoral vote. He said that he had he won the popular vote during the election, and somehow they decided that was the moment to boo. And that's when Congressman Al Green stood up and started doing his thing, right? Going out there and just be like, oh, rah, 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 rah. Well, I don't even know what he was saying, but he was saying it as a planned headline. That's it. Go out there early on, make that the point of discussion on X, on Facebook, wherever people chat. get a bunch of headlines, and as editor of the Liberty Daily, I get to read all the headlines, and I can assure you that after that incident, from the beginning, you had a whole lot of space, we'll call it media space, that should have been used on President Trump's speech itself. But early on, it's like everybody had to write a story about, haha, look at dumb Al Green, mean Al Green, whatever, making a fool out of himself. It worked, but not enough, not nearly enough. It was like, we'll give them that little stupid strategy that was able to ever so slightly act as like a minor speed bump. Those little speed bumps they put sometimes in. I'm not talking about a real speed bump. I'm talking about like the little ones, especially they put in like residential areas where you don't really even have to slow down. Like you just keep going. Yes, you're going to, but it's not going to be like a real speed bump where it's like if you're going 50, you're, this one, it's like, oh, what was that? I think that was a speed bump. That's sort of what Al Green was able to accomplish. He was able to make a scene for very, very briefly. He got the warning from Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And after the warning wasn't heeded, then the Sergeant at Arms forcibly escorted him out. If you notice, if you do get a chance to watch the replay, you see the Sergeant at Arms creeping down already. Okay, long before, like as soon as Al Green started, it was on. Like he's already creeping down the aisle, sort of working his way in, just waiting for the cue for Mike Johnson. By the time Mike Johnson says, okay, Sergeant at Arms, please escort the gentleman out the door. He was right there, Johnny on the spot. They're gone. And the Democrats tried to boo a little bit more, but that's when President Trump came out and said, look, why these guys won't cheer for anything. They hate America, basically. And they do. I mean, that's kind of become the thing. If you're going to be a Democrat, especially a Democrat politician, then you have to despise the United States of America, everything that we represent, our freedoms, our dignity, our superiority, supremacy, exceptionalism, all of those things that President Trump is bringing back to this nation. They hate it. They hate him. They hate it. They hate Doge. They hate Elon Musk. They hate Tom Homan. They hate everything. They hate ICE. They're just so full of hate. And they wonder why Kamala Harris got blown out. They wonder why Joe Biden had the lowest approval rating like ever. They shouldn't wonder. Of course, earlier today, in what can only be described as another stupid stunt, an attempt to change the messaging, but with no effect, they had at least 22 that we know of their senators record a scripted video it's to the point where it was so bad, I am not fully convinced that it wasn't just artificial intelligence. Why wait around for all those senators to do their thing? Why not just get a couple senators to do it live? Chuck Schumer will do it. Get Elizabeth Warren. Good thing that President Trump noted that she was Pocahontas. That was funny. She scowled, of course, during the speech. But you get a couple senators do that, and then they end up maybe using AI to get the other 20 or so. I don't know. Point is that they were able to get 22 senators to allegedly repeat the same basic message. This is their new style of messaging. This is stupid. It's dumb. It's not going to work. I did a segment on this morning's show referring to it as the big lie. It is an attempt to do that. And I said during that segment, I said, do not underestimate the gullibility and the stupidity of our peers, our friends, our neighbors, our relatives that lean left or are full-blown Democrats or full-blown leftists or whatever, because they'll buy into this stuff. That's what I said. And I stand by that, but with caveat, corporate media, legacy media I don't think they took to the messaging nearly as well as Democrats had hoped. They were sort of cringed out by it as well, so they didn't cover that much. Boo-hoo. Probably for the best for the Democrats. I know that's why they wouldn't cover it. It's like, this doesn't, I don't know which intern's idea this was, but it's not good. Not a good look. We're not going to air it. So that was the message from corporate media, legacy media, to those poor Democrats. So we're going to talk, like I said, I don't have any clips from the actual speech, but I do have plenty of notes. So we're going to go over, yes, I still use a notebook. We're going to go over the notes that I took. Some of the highlights. I've got a story here from Fred Lucas and Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell over at Daily Signal, 10 takeaways from Trump's congressional address. We're going to go through all of those and more, and hopefully get some stuff. Be sure, though, before we get into that, be sure to give me a like, give me a thumbs up, whatever. Subscribe if you're new to any of the channels. We are definitely trying to expand, not just on Rumble, but obviously on X. That's a given. But we're also trying to expand on YouTube. You know, for years, I've been vehemently opposed to YouTube, and I still am. But I'm starting to recognize two things. Number one, there are patriots on YouTube. Okay, there really are. I mean, I get some comments. We don't have a big viewership over there yet. It's growing. But I get some comments from YouTube users that are quite impressive. I mean, it's like, yeah, you know, for them, a lot of them, it's like, this is what I've got connected to my television. I don't have a way to connect Rumble to my television, and I'm not going to watch you on a phone. That's basically the statement. So either do it on YouTube or I can't watch you. And I get it. I appreciate that. You know, our intention here is to get the appropriate America First, faith-driven, conspiratorial at times message out to as many Americans as possible. And that means embracing YouTube to some extent. Now, I won't change my content on behalf of YouTube. In other words, YouTube is going to, at some point, they're not going to like what I say. They're going to give me strikes. That's probably going to happen. Okay. And it may get to the point to where I just have to slow down, you know? I just have to slow down on YouTube, that is. I won't slow down at all on X or Rumble or Getter or BitChute or any of the other places, but I might have to slow down a bit on YouTube. Until that happens, though, I still have some time. I do. You know, I don't have any currently. I don't have any strikes, so that's good. That means that I'm at least 2 strikes away from having to tone it down on YouTube. But in the meantime, we're just going to go out there and we're going to do our show. And if there's something that they don't like, they'll take it down. They'll let me know. I'll get a strike, and that's that. But in the meantime, I am going to be posting on X, posting on Rumble, Getter, BitChute, Brighteon, Apple Podcasts. We're re-adding that to the mix. Substack and all that good stuff. As a matter of fact, we even made a brand new Substack that's going to have all of my segments broken down. So, we do the live show, but then I'm going to take individual segments and post those with full-blown stories sometimes on Substack. You can go to JD Rucker Show. JDRucker.substack.com is my Substack, but the show's Substack, as if it's human, the show's Substack, which will only have segments. That's where we converted the old Discern Report over to JDRuckerShow.substack.com. And that'll be a place where we'll put the 5-minute clips, 10-minute clips, 20-minute clips, 30-minute clips, not the entire show. Funny, if you go there now, you'll see that the test was an entire show, but we're not going to be doing that every time. And that way, some of the best work will go out as an email. Most of it won't. Most of them you'll still have to go directly there. But that is that. And thank you, Celine. Thank you for, I'm assuming that those are emojis. I only see the word version of the emojis on my screen, but this is another reason that I love Rumble's studios, because it brings everything in at once. I mean, I have one interface where I get to see where everybody's chatting me up. All right. So with all that said, I will be talking about my notes regarding this historic speech. And it really was historic. I wasn't expecting it to be clear. I thought it was going to be standard, probably a Trump rah-rah speech, rip on the Dems, maybe call Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, and then, be done. 45 minutes, move on. Not that big of a deal. I was wrong. It was a very big deal. There was some breaking news told during the speech, and we're going to cover all of that. But first, there were a couple of other stories that I pre-recorded segments. We're going to play those first. And because there's other news other than just the address. It wasn't quite a State of the Union address. It was more of just a a joint speech, a joint congressional address. So we'll play it like that. But first, let's talk about the thing that, and to be clear, my wife was noting, did you hear, we're actually watching separate rooms because I've got to be working while she's actually watching it on the television. But I went in there, she's like, did you hear? It's like, he basically reiterated everything that you said in your segment earlier about tariffs. It's like, really? Awesome. I knew he was watching my show. Okay, so maybe he wasn't watching the show. Maybe he knows a few more things about Trump's tariffs than I do. That's possible. But with that said, go ahead and watch this clip that I did shortly before the speech, where I describe why all these people that are ripping on his tariffs are, especially from the right, they're all wrong. All right, we found the fallacy. There is a fallacy with Rumble Studio that I'm going to have to figure out. I'm going to play one more. And it's funny because that was actually the wrong one anyway. That was an ad. I was supposed to be playing the clip. Thank you, Entry Regard, for letting me know there's no audio. I'm going to start to play this one. Let me know if the audio comes through. If it does, I'm going to play it through, and if it doesn't, then we're just going to talk about it, or we're just going to pass on it, one way or the other. So it's going to go now. Yep. Yep. That is that is a flaw in the Rumble Studio. That's a shame because that was a really good clip. Really good clip. So thank you again for letting me know. And unfortunately, that means, because it's during these clips, people ask, why do you do those clips? Sometimes I do work, but sometimes I have to turn on the fan because it gets hot in the studio. And that's a shame. I really wanted that clip. Well, let me just pretend like I did the clip. And why don't you tell me what the clip said? That's a Seinfeld reference. All right. So basically what I said is, and President Trump echoed the same thing. The tariffs, a lot of people are getting it wrong. Okay. These tariffs are not to try to start trade wars. The trade war has already been going on for a very long time with the vast majority of nations that we deal with. The trade war has been, like President Trump noted, over 100% tariffs, for example, in automotive for India. How is that even allowable? And why should that be considered fair? Are we starting a trade war by doing, as President Trump said, going with reciprocal tariffs, reciprocal taxes, reciprocal non-tariff penalties? I mean, basically, all he's saying is that these other nations, they have to play fairly. And if they don't, then we're going to make them play fairly. They set the rules. We're just matching them. They want a tariff, add 15% tariffs, then we're going to hit them with 15% tariffs. What I noted, though, and this is the part that I think has a lot of people, especially on the conservative side, a lot of people really upset, is the notion that the 25% tariffs for Texas, from not yet, from Mexico and Canada, the 25% tariffs are going to damage our relationships. They're going to cause this trade war that seems to be brewing or allegedly brewing. And I'm explaining to people there's two things. Number one, we have to understand that tariffs as a whole, just tariffs in general, their intention is not just to generate revenue. That's one of the intentions, but it's also used for geopolitical negotiations. Okay, it's part of a strategy, and it's always a combination of the two. There's nothing that's strictly economically driven. There's nothing that's strictly strategy driven. We have to assume there's a little bit of both going on in each. Sometimes it's more strategy than economics. Sometimes it's more financial than it is strategic. So, for example, why do we have 25% tariffs going into effect for Mexico and Canada? It's because a month ago, President Trump said, we need to stop the flow of fentanyl. It's coming through Mexico and Canada. You need to do something about it. What did they do? They sent 10,000 troops. That's good. It's a good start. You know what that did? That bought them a month. And Trump gave them a month to see what else they would do. And they did nothing. Nothing. They just assumed, okay, well, we sent the 10,000 troops. Don't tariff us, sir. And he said, the flow of fentanyl has still been coming. It has not been slowed at all. So your 10,000 troops was a nice, I don't know, ceremonial gesture, but you still haven't solved the problem. So the tariffs are going into effect. Now, do I think that the tariffs are going to be pulled down? No, I think there's going to be tariffs. Do I think they're going to remain 25% indefinitely? No. As a matter of fact, I would be surprised if they make it through the week. I would imagine that President Trump and his team are already speaking to the various their counterparts in Canada and Mexico to put in lasting and effective measures to stop the flow of fentanyl into the United States of America. That's all we want. That's not all we want, but that's the biggest thing that President Trump wants from them. If they can stop that, the tariffs go down. And we can have reciprocal tariffs. And if those reciprocal tariffs are zero, that's still, keep in mind, reciprocal goes all the way up or down. Okay. If they are charging us zero tariffs, then that would mean that we're charging them zero tariffs. That's what it means to be reciprocal. So people, these other nations, they're the ones in charge. President Trump is not making huge demands. He's just saying, you guys tell us how much we're going to charge you in tariffs. You can tell us by basically charging us tariffs. If you charge us tariffs, that's the signal to let us know how much we're going to charge you. And you would say, well, but that's not the case with Canada and Mexico, and I already covered that. You might also say that's not the case with China. China is a different situation altogether. Okay. There's going to be tariffs on Chinese goods, period. In China, I believe it or not, they're actually okay with this. They're going to fight it. They're going to they're in the process of devaluing their currencies. They're already trying to figure out ways to fight back because they need a tariff imbalance. And all President Trump is trying to do is establish a tariff balance. In the long run, it's going to help both countries because in the long run, this is going to encourage both the United States as well as China to decouple as much as possible from each other. We have a symbiotic relationship right now, and that has served us okay for a while. It's the easy button. It's the lazy way out. So this is why you've got, free trade, because the free traders, which to be clear, used to be a free trade purist. I mean, an absolutist. I wanted Nothing. No tariffs coming in, no tariffs going out, just free trade, may the best man win. But I learned over time that there are certain reasons for tariffs. The biggest reason is for nationalization. Okay. Why, no matter what, we do need some tariffs with China and they need tariffs with us because we need to help our people, the American people, to rise. Or conversely, we need other companies in other countries to start operating here. Look at what he mentioned Honda. Look at what happened with Honda. Honda was operating out of one country. They moved their operations, or at least their production for the Honda Civic, to Mexico, but that's not going to work. So what are they doing? They're moving their Honda Civics production into Indiana because that makes financial sense for them. And so they're going to be paying U.S. taxes. They're going to be buying U.S. land, U.S. equipment, U.S. fuel. They're going to be hiring U.S. workers. That there, folks, that focusing on our own sovereignty, focusing on nationalism here in the United States of America, going America first, that's going to drive other companies in other countries to work with us. In cases where that's not going to be the case, or where that's not going to happen, then American companies can rise up. Either way, it's a huge benefit for Americans, and it brings us closer to one of President Trump's biggest and most important goals, arguably his most important goal as far as his stated goals, not necessarily the most important thing he's going to do or that his administration is going to do, but as far as from a goal perspective, he wants to bring manufacturing back to America. And that hasn't even been a concept for decades. It hasn't even been thought of. We've just assumed, hey, we're a consumer nation. Other people build stuff. We buy stuff. They make it. We use it. It'll work. It could work if you have unlimited funds. If you eventually succumb to the evils of modern monetary theory, sure, it could work until it doesn't work, until we crash. This is tariffs, the way that President Trump is using them. It's hard for somebody like me to accept when I was wrong, but I was wrong. So back to China. China gets less tariffs than Canada and Mexico. I think in the long run, they won't. In the long run, it'll be about equal. The difference there is that there will always be tariffs between the United States and China for the sake of both countries. And here's where the negotiation aspect comes into play. It's not about establishing the number up or down. It's about deciding and negotiating with the exceptions. Where do we make an exception? Whose tariffs which industry, which company, which organization do we not impose tariffs on? That's where the negotiations come in. And this is all directly tied to rare earth minerals, which of course China has a stranglehold on. We're expecting, allegedly, President Trump during the speech, he noted that he had just gotten a letter from President Vladimir Zelensky from Ukraine saying that, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to sign the rare earth minerals deal with the United States and start coming to the table and talking about peace. And hopefully he's not just faking it this time like he was the last 3 times. We know everybody knows about the most recent, but not as many people realize that he'd already met with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio in Paris. He'd already met with Scott Bessent in Kiev. He'd already said no twice before coming to the United States, where he was allegedly going to say yes and said no again, or insinuated no before President Trump kicked him out. Now, fourth time's a charm, I guess. Now we'll see. Is he really going to come to the table, or is he not? President Trump got the letter. I think that he is. I think that he's ready, but it can't come that easily. And I think he lost a little bit of negotiating power there, he being Vladimir Zelensky. We were at 50-50. Maybe now we're at 55-45, which is still a better deal than he can get from private industry, still a better deal than he can get from other countries. Private industry, other countries, they'll come in with either 80 or 90% demands. In other words, we come in there, we'll make we'll get the rare earths, and whatever we make, we'll give you 10 or 20% of it. That's standard deal. President Trump said, hey, we'll come in, we'll get those rare earths, we'll go 50-50. That's it. So Zelensky would be crazy to say no. But then again, maybe he doesn't care. Seriously. I mean, I'm not being funny here. Maybe his retention of power is just the desire to be the king of Ukraine, the poster boy for the United Nations, the love child of the World Economic Forum and the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, whatever you want to call him. The next Secretary General of the United Nations, or whatever his goals are. If those personal goals supersede the lives of his people, then yeah, I can see that he would actually still pass on, abandon the deal that President Trump is offering him. We'll see how that goes. That's a gigantic mess right now. It really is. So signs the deal, doesn't sign the deal, still a giant mess. It will remain a mess until two things happen. Number one, until there's peace. And number two, until Zelensky is out. As long as Zelensky is president of Ukraine, there are going to be challenges for Ukrainians. I'm not even just talking about between our relationship with them or Russia's relationship with them. Vladimir Zelensky is essentially the Greta Thunberg of direct politics. Okay? Shouldn't have been put in the position that he's in. Isn't prepared for things as they mature. Makes really, really bad decisions and comes across as an idiot. Greta Thunberg. Entry Regard says U.S. can open 2 productive rare earth mines, but the environmental costs are prohibitive. Well, then we'll have to get rid of the environmental costs. President Trump did note that he does want to start exploring more domestic rare earth minerals. I don't know the science behind it. I will admit that's one area. Look, I think that I know a lot about everything, almost everything, but if there's something that I'm not as familiar with, then I will not pretend. And I don't know the science or the logistics behind rare earth mining. I know, for example, all about lithium mining. I know about fracking. I know about the other controversial styles of mining. Is it just that we don't have enough? I think that's part of the situation. They always talk about how Ukraine has plenty, Russia has plenty, obviously China has a ton. Afghanistan had a ton. I mean, if we ever want to know why President Trump is able to get good deals, all we have to do is look at Afghanistan. Afghanistan, we were there supporting them, killing them, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. We had a relationship with the Afghan government for 17 years. We were there, and we didn't make a rare earth deal with them, even though they have tons of it. Why not? People think, we were in Afghanistan, we left, we didn't make any deals at all. That's not true. We didn't make any deals they could talk about publicly. If they didn't have these other deals, these private deals that were happening, then we would have made a deal for rare earths, just as we've made deals in the past with other nations for oil, for example. The fact that we didn't make a deal, any deal at all in 17 years with Afghanistan for the rare earths that they have no use for, okay, they don't have the technological need for it. They have no way of extracting it, apparently. They don't have the sophistication to be able to mine it. It's just sitting there. We could have taken care of it, made them rich, like what President Trump is offering for Ukraine, basically a rebuilding fund. We could have done that in Afghanistan. Why didn't we? Why didn't they take the deal? The answer to that, and this is very ugly, so close your ears if you're sensitive. The answer to that is because we had other deals. We being the United States, not you and me, not President Trump, I'm talking about Barack Obama. I'm talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about probably George W. Bush. Dick Cheney for sure. There's a lot of bad guys in our government, or formerly in our government, who made many, many deals with Afghanistan and had nothing to do with any of the resources that they could talk about publicly. Yes, it did have to do with some very ugly stuff we all know about. Well, maybe you don't, but the opium deals, oh, brother, Don't get me started with that. And then there's the ugly side of it. The ugly side of it is that we almost certainly, and I hate to even say this without proof, but I have good sources that tell me this nasty information that I don't like to talk about, but I will. We were dealing with making deals for, I shouldn't say with, but for Afghan children. I mean, the United States government, the deep state, has proven to be the most prolific child sex trafficking organization in the history of humanity. Okay. Far worse than any Mayans or whatever. No, they were like, a child a week. We're like a child a minute. It's not even close. Oh, to answer my question, very good, very good. Entry Regards says rare earth mining is as toxic as South American jungle gold mining. Which that we do know. I mean, that's talk about destructive to the environment. There you go. He also says, "Oh, OMG, not Greta, New Yorker in Sweden here, and I have to catch a bus in 30 minutes." Well, at least you're doing it the right way. And he also says he or she, I don't know, it's ambiguous gender, but fentanyl is the new opium wars. Our soldiers had to tolerate Afghan pedos. Yes. I don't know about tolerate. I would say encourage. That's the thing is that, no, soldier, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Our soldiers had to tolerate. Right. Absolutely. And they hated it. And that's funny because that's when I say I have trustworthy sources, they are in the military that served in Afghanistan. And they will echo that sentiment. Yes, they saw things, heard about things, and would not participate in those things, refused to, and got shipped out as a result. They would not help in the child sex trafficking that was going on and probably still is going on in Afghanistan. That was the trade. Okay. It's not that they didn't make a deal, it's that they can't talk about the deal that they made. Had President Trump been in office at the time, we would have made a deal for the rare earths. He should have in his first term. He didn't. And I would blame that on starting off with Rex Tillerson and working all your way down with all the secretaries of state that failed miserably. He had the worst secretaries of state compared to Marco Rubio. I've been very critical of him as a senator. He's been my favorite secretary of state since probably Jim Baker. Anybody who knows the error that I just made, don't repeat it. That's funny because it's not Jim, it's James. Very different people. Yes, and I'm not even going to repeat what you said in there, but that's exactly correct. Entry Regard. Let's move on to, let's get, you know what? We had tariffs. Bottom line is this. The tariffs, President Trump during his speech laid it out pretty well. In my segment, which I guess I'll be playing as a standalone overnight, in my segment earlier, I highlighted how a lot of people, especially on the right, are getting it wrong. And the conclusion to the tariff talk is this. Does it sound weird? At face value, 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico? That sounds awful. All I'm suggesting is just before you start passing judgment, give it a day or two or 10 or even a month. It's not going to take much longer than that. We could start seeing action on it this week. Before we jump to conclusions, let's not forget who we're dealing with. Just sit back, let him cook. He's cooking, okay? President Trump is cooking with the tariffs. Let him cook. Let him do his thing, and he will be just fine. All right, so now let's get to these notes that I have. So I thought it was interesting. Doug Collins, the Director of Veterans Affairs, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, I should say, was the designated survivor. So, and for those who aren't familiar with Doug Collins, former congressman, he is, he would have been a good Kiefer Sutherland style president. I never watched that show, by the way, but he was the designated survivor for the night, and praise God, nothing happened that would have made Doug Collins the president. Rare earths, we talked about that. Let's see. Carlo. Ooh, I like this one. This is a new idea. I mean, maybe it's not new. Maybe this is one that I just missed. But he said that they're working to make interest on auto loans tax-free, but only for cars that are made in America. That type of mentality, I mean, who comes up with this stuff? It's like he's so focused on America. It almost hurts. Like it's like, really? Yeah, I mean, it's like we're getting pampered here. You know, and I look, people sometimes forget I am a legal immigrant, technically speaking. Now, my dad was in the U.S. military, so before I was born, so that makes me a natural born citizen. But I was born abroad. I came to the United States. And this is all I've known. I was 8 months old when I came here, so it's not like I don't have dual citizenship. I don't speak any other languages, to the chagrin of my mother. She tried. Apparently, it just wouldn't take. But then she went off as a legal immigrant, married my father, and then she went off and she ended up joining the U.S. Army, became a captain in the U.S. Army. So I have a very a great deal of pride. I know sometimes we think, and I mean I've thought this in the past. Sometimes we think that the people who people will say, "Oh, I'm eighth generation American." It's like, that's awesome, that's great. You know, I'm technically, I'm also proud. I'm like a combo. It's like I'm like an eighth generation and a first generation at the same time, depending on which side of the family you look at. But with that said, I do feel like this is what we have wanted our entire lives. We've wanted a president who will fight for us, but perhaps more importantly, who will actually do the things that he says he's going to do. And he demonstrated that like 15 times today, especially with the promises made to individuals. We're not just talking about, campaign promises. We're talking about things that had nothing to do with the campaign, nothing to do with his election. If he wanted to, he could have done everything that he did, talked a lot of the things that he talked about tonight with individuals. He could have just let that be what it was, you know, like, I forgot. We all know about the Lake and Riley Act. That was the first executive order that he signed, literally on day one. But he had other things that he did. Other, I forgot his name. Somebody tell me his name. Ah, sorry, I'm fading a bit, sleep-wise. The prisoner, the hostage that he was able to free from Russia, who had like a 14-year sentence. He was able to get him out on day 22. His mother, his 95-year-old mother, he had just met her in her hometown where she'd lived for like 70 years. He had just met her, okay, in her hometown of Butler, Pennsylvania, 10 minutes before the fateful incident, the assassination attempt, the murder, and the wounding of many, and the murder of one, and the attempted assassination of a president in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th of 2024. He met that woman, and he told her, "I'm not going to forget. So as soon as I get into office, we're going to do everything we can to bring your son home." It took 22 days. He was there for a long time under the Biden regime, but it took Trump 22 days to get him home. Praise God for that, because he could have just not, and there would have been no negative press. Nobody would have cared. Okay, most of us wouldn't have known. It's not that nobody would have cared. Most of us would have either forgotten about it or said, "Oh, these things take time," or, "Hey, we'll get him home next year," or something like that. No, President Trump is different. He told a woman prior to an assassination attempt on him. Would have been easy for him to forget, but he didn't, and he wouldn't. He didn't forget the promise that he made prior to somebody shooting him, and he kept that promise. And now our son is home. And it's stories like that you didn't hear these. Not under Biden, not under Obama, not under Bush, not under Clinton, not under Bush, Herbert Walker Bush. You heard sometimes from Reagan, but not a lot. You know, Reagan was great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ripping on Reagan here. But, when during Trump's first term, I said, he's good. He did a good job. I don't know if he's better than Reagan. 6 weeks into his second term, and I think he's better than Reagan. I really do. Especially compared to Reagan's second term. But that's a whole other discussion for another day. Especially considering what Reagan did with amnesty. That's a discussion for another day. Let's get back to some positive news. I love Reagan. Don't get me wrong. Don't take that out of context. But yeah, car loans, no taxes, as long as they're made here in the United States. We talked about April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs and taxes. And again, we're not talking about starting a trade war. We're talking about they tell us how much they want to charge us, and we'll charge them the same amount. Fair, simple, easy. Okay? Name your price. Name your tariff. Oh, you want to charge 0 tariffs? Okay. Then we'll charge you 0 tariffs. Oh, you want to charge 100%? Okay. Well, we'll charge you 100%. See how that works? Doesn't that sort of make sense? I mean, I know that not all of us are mathematical geniuses, but it seems like it makes a lot of sense. That's just me. That's just me. The Lake and Riley part was very, very. I don't want to say emotional because we've gone over it so much. I've heard the story, read the story, dove into the story a lot. It disturbs me. It's hideous. But it's still seeing her family there, seeing their reactions, the tears. It was touching. I'm glad that he took the time to talk to her and so many others. There were victims. He had I forgot her name, the young lady who had the dude spike a volleyball on her face, basically like cause brain damage. Yeah, that happened. He had other victims of illegal aliens there. He had a mom whose daughter was transitioned without her knowledge. Nobody told her. The school took it on itself to trans a child. I mean, that really chaps my khakis. But there were some great moments. DJ Daniels, that's the name I'm going to remember. DJ Daniels, when he was it 6, 7 years old, he was diagnosed with brain cancer. Said he had like 6 months to live. He's now 13. He really wants to be a cop. He came in full. He's an honorary police officer in many precincts, many departments across the country. A little celebrity, right? Because here's a kid who has survived brain cancer for years, despite a prognosis of dying within months. President Trump had his director of the Secret Service go up to the kid, bring him a badge, a Secret Service badge. I mean, you saw he showed that was a real ID. I mean, obviously it's not real, but it's like it wasn't like some cheap fake. I mean, that was legit. And I mean, the kid was just astounded. His eyes just lit up. He grabbed that big, tough, burly Secret Service agent. He hugged him, and I thought, I forgot the guy's name. He's the guy that has been with Trump for a long time. I forgot his name. I thought he was going to melt into tears. You could tell he wasn't expecting it. You could tell that he was moved by how much this child was moved by the actions of President Trump. Amazing stuff. Just an amazing night. I'll get to there was one part of the night that I think was the most important one. Really, I mean, and it's not going to get talked about enough. Looking at the stories that were being posted through the Liberty Daily, there was one story. I was going through my entire feed of about 300 different conservative and alternative media sources. So far, only one news outlet, I think it was Just the News, picked up on it. But that one particular, it's a 8-second clip from President Trump, but it's the most important one. I'll save that one for the end. That way you guys have to stay. You have to give me a thumbs up. You have to give me a subscribe. You have to send me roses. I want roses sent to my house so I can give them to my wife, of course. Let's see. Oh yeah, they had that one kid. This kid has a 4.46 GPA. It's like a six sport letterman. Dude's like, and he's applying. His dream is to go to West Point. President Trump announced that he was accepted to West Point. And the kid, again, you could see, I mean, you can always tell when something is staged as far as like, oh, they're pretending to be surprised. These people, they're all just shocked. He's like, what? I mean, it reminded me of the scene in the Groundhog Day when Bill Murray gives them tickets to WrestleMania. That was the level of excitement and surprise they had. Let's see. Ukraine sent the letter. Oh, and on top of Ukraine sending that letter, by the way, Russia also has been sending, apparently, according to President Trump, Russia has been sending very positive signals about this, which I'll admit, like, if you were to, if I had to guess last week, who's going to be more receptive to peace, I thought it would be Zelensky. I was wrong. Okay. I would have thought that Putin, I mean, because let's face it, Putin's not losing this war. He's not doing well. War should have been over like after 2 weeks, right? Because we are talking about Russia versus Ukraine. It shouldn't have been, there shouldn't still be a war going, but there is. It's been prolonged through the efforts of people like Joe Biden, through the efforts of the European Union, NATO, whatever. And also, let's call what it is, through the lack of military prowess that Russia apparently has. So that's good. I'm glad to see that. But I want to get to this part that truly touched me. And it touched me because of the way that he said it. Not just that he said it. I would say that, my challenges with Trump from the beginning, okay? I'm talking since 2015, since he was first running for office. I've had questions about, or I don't have these questions anymore, to be clear, but I had questions about his adherence to the faith. He's never seemed to be, at least until recently, he's never seemed to be a true believer in God. That was my thought. It sucks that I thought that. I regret thinking that, but I did have questions. I mean, I think most of us remember 2 Thessalonians, right? Anybody who's ever been to church or listened to a pastor or anything knows that it's 2 Thessalonians, but he didn't know that. It shocked him. It absolutely shocked him. But things change. And I think that he himself has been a different man ever since July 13th, 2024. He often attributes his survival to God. I attribute his survival to God. I mean, if God didn't want him to be president, just, half an inch. That's all that was necessary. Half an inch. Just a little angelic nudge. But that didn't happen. Instead, he is president. He did survive miraculously. And I think that he's been a changed man. President Trump has been changed ever since. Now, would I ever go to President Trump and ask him for, his textbook understanding of Genesis 6? No, I wouldn't. Do I think that he's sitting there every night reading his Bible? No, I don't. But God has demonstrated throughout human history that sometimes he can do miraculous things with people who aren't necessarily full-blown adherents to the scripture, to the word. He uses people in different ways, and I do believe, I pray, I hope that he's using President Trump in that possible way. But he had said a line that it's in regards to trans children. It's a line that I've said something similar in the past, and I've actually done entire segments of shows speaking on the topic for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And out of all of the times that I've talked about creation and transgenderism and the brainwashing that happens with, by adults, usually adults, on these children. I've never been able to say it quite as perfectly as President Trump noted in his speech tonight. He said, and he's trying to talk to these children, trying to let these kids know that this is how we feel. He says, you are perfect, exactly the way that God made you. That is a powerful message. That's an important message. And not just coming from President Trump, that's an important message that we all need to share. I've long said that one of the reasons they go after children when it comes to the indoctrination into an LGBTQIA plus mindset, it's because if they can take a child, we'll say a boy, they can take a young boy and convince him that he is a girl in a boy's body, then at a future time or even at the current time, whenever contemplating the ideas of faith, knowing that or learning that we are created by God, this confused boy who's been told that he might be a girl in the wrong body, he can only come to one of two conclusions. Either God made a mistake by putting him in the wrong body, or God doesn't exist. And while I'm not suggesting that everyone involved in the transing of America, transing of the world, I don't think that every one of them involved is aware of or even thinks about the biblical or the spiritual attack that they're engaged in. But they all are engaged in that attack, one way or the other, whether they know it or not. They're participating in preventing, trying to and not preventing, but trying to make it more difficult for this child to grow up believing in the Bible, believing that Jesus Christ is his Lord and Savior, believing that they were created by God. So when I hear President Trump say these words, it really was touching. I'll repeat them. You are perfect, exactly the way God made you. That's a message that needs to be repeated, echoed, reiterated, repurposed, whatever. Every child in America, every teen in America needs to hear those words, whether they're believers or not. Somebody, a lot of them, are not going to believe it. It's just going to go right over their heads. But if some of them can be touched, if some of them, even a small percentage, can be reminded that they're created and they're created by a perfect being who created them exactly how they were supposed to be created, that's a message that can, I think, have a very big impact on America. Generally, this is when I would click a button and go on break. But since I can't click a button because apparently there's no sound, I'd like to talk to you briefly about Amway. No, I'm just kidding. I do want to talk to you about gold. I was watching RSBN. They have a gold sponsor, and they were like, yeah, it's good, big gold, good gold, awesome gold. I sometimes forget that not everybody is aware. Some of my audience aren't aware that the gold company that I work with is a faith-driven gold company. Genesis Gold Group is driven by the words of the Bible. Genesis, as in the first book of the Bible, noting that gold has been mentioned from the beginning of humanity all the way through, from Genesis to Revelation. They talk about gold. And that's why I work with Genesis Gold Group, because they, more than anybody else out there that I've seen so far, and I have vetted out, I think I'm up to 34, if I recall, different gold companies. And there's some decent ones, but most of them are awful. Most of them are just ripoffs, cons. Okay. I mean, they overcharge. They offer bonus silver or free silver or whatever. And I can assure you that that's not really free. It's not really a bonus. It's just you're paying for it, It's just added to the cost of the gold that you're or in silver that you're actually buying for your retirement account. Like if you're buying, say, $100,000 worth, they'll say, okay, well, we're going to put $85,000 worth in your account, and oh look, here's $15,000 in bonus silver. I mean, it's the same 100,000. It's just they separated. They just overcharge for that 85, charge you 100 for the $85,000 worth, and then give you 15 free. It's funny. It's sad because it should be actually really free or bonus if they are going to make that promise. Genesis Gold Group won't do that. They'll just treat you straight up. They'll help you do a tax-free rollover or transfer of your current retirement accounts into a Genesis Gold IRA backed by physical precious metals. They help you with the metals mix. They do a fantastic job. Go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com, or call 800-200-GOLD. That's 800-200-4653. So let's go to this article briefly. And I haven't read this yet. We're doing this on the fly. 10 takeaways from Trump's congressional address by Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell and Fred Lucas. Heckling Democrat lawmakers, brandishing canes and signs couldn't stop President Donald Trump from showing off his efforts to renew the American dream for every citizen. He painted a picture of what he described as a dark past under Joe Biden and a new future where anyone can achieve the American dream. He said, the American dream is unstoppable and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again. I hope that's not true, that last part. I do hope that this style of resurgence, of nationalism, of exceptionalism, that other nations in the future can experience it, because this has been fantastic. I wish that other people can feel what I feel today about this nation that we live in. So let's go through this list. Again, these are the top 10 things. Number 1, restore common sense. I'm not going to go over that one because you get it. You already know. Number 2, nothing I can do. After boos and heckles, Trump seemed to go off script to voice frustration with the Democrats. So they again, I noted before, if you're joining late, I had noted before that I wasn't sure whether or not this was part of the planned speech or not. It was, and it's good either way, to be clear. It was part of the planned speech. That tells us that his speechwriters anticipated that the Democrats were going to make asses of themselves, so they worked this one in. If it wasn't planned, if Trump was going off script, then that's obviously very awesome because it was effective. You'll notice, if you watch from beginning to end, you'll notice that they were being total jerks throughout, not just Al Green, the entirety of that side of the room. The Democrat side of the room, they were being jerks. And as soon as Trump said these words that I'm about to tell you, they calmed down. There was a few little minor outbursts, but nothing compared to the full-blown disruption that they were attempting early on. Now, I would argue that it seems very possible that they had focus groups, and they were tapped in, okay? They had groups of people, and they're like, okay, you guys watch this, and you tell us, did the Democrats look good or bad doing this? And when after those first few outbreaks, especially after, or outbursts, not outbreaks, outbreaks too probably, but after those first few outbursts, and then Al Green getting booted, they probably saw in these little focus groups, that makes you guys look worse, not better. So then they start tapping, and Nancy and Chuck and whoever, they're getting like little beeps on their chest or beeps on their or they're getting a text message or something saying abort plan disrupt. Tell AOC to wait in the hall. I don't know. But anyway, so here's what he said. He said, I look at the Democrats in front of me and I realize there's absolutely nothing I can say or do to make them happy or to make them stand and smile or applaud. Nothing I could do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out an entire nation, or announce the answer to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer. 5 times I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be that way. He invited Democrats to join the celebration. He said, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America? For the good of our nation, let's work together and truly make America great again. And from that point on, they had a couple little minor outbursts, like I said. and that's it. I think there's at one point, like, I don't even know who left. Somebody left and they had like resist on their backs. It's like, really? You're going to go to a speech? You're going to go to a speech with like a t-shirt underneath your regular shirt that has a message for the cameras? I mean, is, are you 17? Are you an activist or a representative of the people of the United States of America and a defender of the Constitution? Or are you just like a troll? Pick one. Number 3, restore true democracy. Which, of course, I cringe every time they say, the American democracy, threat to democracy, restore democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Okay? Democrats spent much of the 2024 election cycle claiming that Trump was a threat to democracy, even claiming democracy was on the ballot. Trump subsequently tackled the federal bureaucracy, which the president and many others contend undermines the prerogatives of elected officials. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again, which America has never had a democracy. I get I understand. It's language, whatever. Trump signed a Schedule F executive order that makes it easier to fire bureaucrats involved in policy matters who would normally have civil service protection from being fired. The Department of Government Efficiency has also targeted bureaucratic waste. Any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately because we are draining the swamp. It's very simple. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. Praise God for that. My administration will reclaim power from the unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again. Boom. Number 4, they tariff us, we tariff them. I covered that. But I do encourage you, because he does spend a great deal of time of his speech. If you didn't get to watch it, watch it. He mentions the Honda thing. Number 5, gigantic natural gas pipeline. The president said he has reversed the Biden administration's energy policies. Very true. Which, to be fair, Biden's day one, he literally reversed President Trump's energy policies. This is why, one of the fact that we have elections every 4 years, the fact that we have term limits for presidents, the fact that executive orders are so easily overturnable, which, by the way, I'm not complaining about any of that stuff. Okay? To be clear, I'm not saying that we should change any of that. What I'm saying is that's why, dealing with the U.S. government, whether you're foreign or domestic, it can be very challenging because things can just change on a dime. Ask those guys that were building Keystone XL pipeline. On his first day in office, he declared a national energy emergency. I terminated the ridiculous Green New scam. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars. We ended all of Biden's environmental restrictions and that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. And that, to the point earlier, hopefully this will mean that under President Trump, we will be able to get our own rare earth minerals. Number 6, Trump honors Laken Riley. We know about that. And pray for her and her family. Number 7, end the savage conflict. Just days after the dramatic Oval Office confrontation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump again stressed his goal for peace in the Russia-Ukraine war. He said it was time to stop the madness. Trump read a letter from Zelensky agreeing to the mineral deal. Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads that Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiation table, as soon as possible to bring lasting peace. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals they are ready for peace. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you, my time, you being us. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. And again, this is a quote from a letter that Zelensky sent to Trump. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine. He added, if you want to end wars, you got to talk to both sides. And he's absolutely right about that. Number 8, a terrible lie. Trump stands against child sex changes. And I think we covered that enough. I don't want to go too deep into that because, again, he said enough. But I will say this. He called on lawmakers to pass a bill banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. Our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you. Wokeness is gone, he said. Number 9, combating inflation by ending waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm going to be talking about that thoroughly tomorrow because they're talking about lowering interest rates. They're talking about tariffs. They're talking about devaluing the dollar, all of which can harm inflation. All of which, by the way, is why you should definitely contact Genesis Gold Group by going to jdrgold.com to roll over or transfer your IRA into or 401k into a Genesis Gold IRA. Just getting that in there since I messed up earlier. Point being is that, yes, I am going to be talking about this inflation thing because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, even coming from the right. It's not just legacy media we have to worry about. There's a lack of an understanding about inflation and how it works that it's a little discouraging because I'm not an economist, but I know how it works. Now, granted, I listen to economists kind of like, I don't watch Netflix. I watch economists. Is that weird? I am going on. I thought I was going on today. I had my schedule mixed up. I am going on with the great Alex Newman to talk about the economy tomorrow as well. I don't know. It's not live. It's pre-recorded, but he's got me for 45 minutes, which means that I should be able to get about 1/3 of what I want to talk about done, but we will see. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not going to cover that one. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Number 10. And this was a disgusting display. Democrats sit as a young cancer patient was honored. Trump honored 13-year-old cancer patient DJ Daniel, whose dream is to become a police officer. That's who I was referring to before. I didn't note, I was talking about how I got choked up. I'll admit it. I got choked up when I saw that kid. He's got his police uniform on. Pretty special. And then watching these Democrats, you know what? We got a clip. I didn't realize that we have a clip. We're going to play the clip. Let me get it set up to where you can listen to the clip. And let's play this clip.
Joining us in the gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police.
Well, and you saw the end. Those dastardly Democrats just sitting there, because I guess they thought that DJ was a Republican or a Trump supporter or something. After the speech, they had this, of course, planned out as well because they love theater. They're so good at theater. They got up. I mean, as soon as the speech was over, they bolted. It was ugly. Okay. I mean, they did not. They just headed. I mean, they left that room faster than an audience at a recent Woody Allen movie. I mean, it's like, okay, move, show's over. They stood and they all just left in unison. It was crazy. It was kind of neat seeing the coordination. Like, I'm sure that they would be very good at like like those dances that the nurses did during COVID. I'll bet you the Democrats would be very good at those, and I'll bet you the Republicans would not. I'll bet you that I bet you they would have a hard time doing, those line dance things, right? Like nurses during COVID. But Democrats would nail it. They are very good at coordinating theatrical events, stuff like that. That was such a good moment, though. I would say second to the statement that Trump made about God. That was probably my favorite moment from the speech. We are. I am going to do a follow-up show because, again, for those who may be coming in late, I had a couple of segments that I pre-recorded, but we're trying to get it to work on. I'm gonna have to play some more with Rumble Studio to be able to, because we couldn't get it to play. I think I might have to just figure out a way to plug it in. Anyway, there's a couple of clips that I didn't get to play entire segments that I wanted to go over. So I'm going to, once this show is done, I'm going to be turning it off, and then I'm going to be preparing another show, not the tomorrow morning show. We're actually going to have basically a third show. It'll be technically tomorrow, so technically speaking, tomorrow we should have 2 or 3 shows. But yeah, I want to make sure to get those out because they're important. I mean, BlackRock buying the buying the Panama Canal wasn't on my bingo card. Didn't see it coming. And then, of course, there's the aforementioned misunderstandings regarding both tariffs and inflation that I have to cover. Yeah, I'm not a fan of talking about economics, and I'm not an economist or anything myself, but it surprises me how little understanding there is for many in the conservative media. Sure, the basics are fine. We know we want to cut taxes. Got it. But there's more to it than that. There's more. There are more layers to the economy than we're often ready to acknowledge. We've got a big jobs report, non-farm jobs report coming out Friday. We've got I think we have a report coming out Wednesday as well. Not a jobs report; it's a different report. Point is that as bored as I get with economics and finance, I still spend a lot of time on it because I think that it's important. So anyway, yeah, I will be having another show here within hours, not just tomorrow. I mean, we're talking like an overnight show to cover that stuff as a bridge for tomorrow's show, which we're doing different times again, like I said, for the morning one. And then for those who are new at night, that's the constant. We do that for sure, 5 nights a week, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and whatever your time zone is in between. We do that Monday through Friday, every day, every week. So that is the consistent one. The other 1.5, 2 shows that we're doing are kind of fluctuating until we find a good, perfect home for them. So we will see. Be sure to subscribe. It's the only way that you're going to be able to keep up with all of this. Be sure to thumbs up or like or whatever, depending upon what platform you're on. Yeah, and should be good stuff. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, y'all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.